Breaking news! In just 14 minutes, America reduced China's most secure nuclear bases to craters. Missile silos shattered open, billion-dollar convoys turned into fireballs, and Beijing's silence shocked the entire world. Operation Iron Torch has changed global power forever. At exactly 7 a.m. Washington time on July 15, 2025, silence fell over the Oval Office as the president prepared to address the nation. Hours earlier, waves of precision-guided drones and cruise missiles had zeroed in on their targets. Coalition forces bypassed China's layered defenses, paralyzing satellite links and blinding long-range radars for a critical 9-minute window. In that gap, hardened missile silos cracked open like crushed tin cans. Fuel convoys erupted into towering infernos, and a vital 360-meter-long railway line collapsed into rubble, severing Beijing's lifeline to its nuclear launch platforms. Intelligence confirmed the destruction of facilities believed to house DF-41 intercontinental ballistic missiles, each capable of carrying multiple nuclear warheads with the range to hit the continental United States in less than half an hour. By crippling them, America had delivered a message not only to China but to every adversary watching. If you aim nuclear fire at our homeland, you will not receive a warning, you will receive a crater. The president's words, delivered with steel conviction and broadcast across every screen from Los Angeles to Tokyo, left no ambiguity. Flanked by the vice president and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, he declared, "America does not wait for threats to mature. We confront them at their source." The statement resonated globally, sparking debates in NATO headquarters in Brussels, in parliaments across Europe, and in military command centers throughout Asia. Within hours, leaders scrambled to recalculate their strategies, realizing the battlefield was no longer confined by borders. The strike proved that in the 21st century, wars are fought with speed, precision, and overwhelming surprise. As NATO convened an emergency session in Brussels at 9:30 a.m. local time, 31 ambassadors faced the hard truth: China's aggression had pierced far beyond Asia. Intelligence briefings revealed high-altitude Chinese surveillance drones had been operating dangerously close to NATO's Krylov 9 monitoring station, just 40 kilometers from Eastern Europe's sensitive frontiers. To diplomats, the implication was clear: Beijing's ambitions were not limited to the Pacific. If China could extend its reach into Europe's heartland, no border remained sacred, no alliance secure. Eastern European representatives from Poland, Romania, and the Baltic states demanded reinforcements, while intelligence officers warned of coordinated pressure designed to fracture Western unity. Reports confirmed Chinese naval activity near Gwadar in Pakistan, and joint maneuvers with Russian forces in the South China Sea had spiked in recent days, painting a picture of adversaries testing the West's red line simultaneously. Meanwhile, across the Pacific, the reverberations were immediate. Tokyo sounded air raid sirens for the first time in 6 years. Seoul ordered its radar operators to triple their surveillance cycles. In Canberra, Australia's defense minister raised naval bases in Darwin and Perth to high threat levels. The fear was unmistakable. The flames that erupted in Xinjiang could leap oceans in days, dragging multiple continents into confrontation. Yet even as Chinese officials went on state television to dismiss the American strike as reckless and unlawful, satellite images and viral videos told a harsher truth. Craters the size of football stadiums scarred the desert, smoke towers rose 8,000 feet into the sky, and convoys of ambulances lined remote highways. Inside China, censorship struggled to contain the fallout. VPN traffic surged more than 400% as citizens sought unfiltered reports of the devastation. The government's denial clashed with undeniable evidence flooding across social media platforms. At 3 p.m. local time in Taipei, Taiwan seized the moment. Its defense minister, standing beside the nation's Air Force commander, announced a joint press conference unlike anything in recent memory. The message was unflinching. The United States stood with us when others hesitated. Every drone we launch, every sortie we fly is proof that Taiwan will never kneel. Behind them, screens displayed raw imagery: 11 Chinese J-20 stealth fighters lying in flames on a coastal runway, 2 DF-26 missile transporters cracked apart by drone strikes, and a supply rail line cratered, cutting into Fujian province. In 72 hours, Taiwan's drone fleet, developed with U.S. and Japanese engineers, had flown more than 600 missions, inflicting over $1 billion in damage with disposable UAVs costing less than $50,000 apiece. This asymmetric strategy showed the world that even the largest military machines could be bled dry with agility and innovation. Factories in Taiwan became symbols of determination. Journalists witnessed thousands of technicians working under round-the-clock shifts, producing strike drones at an accelerated pace with the goal of reaching 1,200 units per month by the end of August. Crowds gathered in Liberty Square waving American and Taiwanese flags, chanting, "Freedom is not given, it is defended." Broadcast live, their voices carried across the Pacific and deep into Beijing's corridors, where officials faced the crumbling of their carefully crafted image of invincibility. The psychological impact of those images was as potent as the strikes themselves. The battlefield was not only in deserts and skies, it was on every smartphone and television around the world. By early evening GMT, the war had already escaped the deserts of Xinjiang and the runways of Taiwan. It had migrated onto the world's screens. Within hours of the strike, drone footage and satellite images went viral across YouTube, Telegram, and TikTok. One clip showing a DF-41 missile silo ripped wide open like a crushed soda can reached 26 million views in under 6 hours. Another video capturing the detonation of a billion-dollar fuel convoy along the G3016 railway was replayed over 40 million times before Beijing's censors could even attempt to intervene. Anonymous accounts leaked high-resolution satellite snapshots. 3 massive craters, each larger than a football stadium, marking the exact locations where China's most secure missile complexes had stood just the day before. Global audiences reacted in disbelief. "This looks like science fiction," one viewer commented. Another replied bluntly, "No, this is the new reality." Hashtags like #IronTorch, #CraterDoctrine, and #ChinaExposed surged across platforms, collectively surpassing 120 million mentions within 24 hours. Social media transformed the battlefield into a courtroom of public opinion, and the verdict was devastatingly clear. China had been struck and the world had seen undeniable proof. Beijing scrambled to craft counter-narratives with state-run broadcasters insisting damage was minimal, claiming what the world witnessed were routine exercises gone wrong. But the truth seeped through cracks in censorship. Independent footage from Xinjiang showed miles of ambulances, military families mourning quietly, and black smoke columns piercing the sky. Inside China itself, VPN usage skyrocketed more than 400%, as citizens desperately searched for unfiltered information. For military analysts, the cost equation told an even harsher story. Less than $200 million worth of coalition drones, precision missiles, and electronic warfare systems had erased infrastructure exceeding $3.5 billion in value. It was a staggering reversal, a demonstration that the balance between offense and defense had been rewritten overnight. Hardened bunkers and billion-dollar radars were no longer guarantees. They were targets waiting to be cracked open by cheaper, smarter, faster weapons. And the world was watching closely. In Washington, the president's doctrine was already being dissected by experts. His line, "If you point a nuclear weapon at our homeland, you won't get a warning, you'll get a crater," was being described as a turning point in U.S. military policy, a doctrine of preemption, not whispered in back rooms but declared openly to the entire planet. Television anchors compared it to the Truman Doctrine, to Kennedy's warning during the Cuban Missile Crisis, to Reagan's peace through strength. But this message carried a new edge. Distance no longer provided safety. Geography was irrelevant. A missile base 7,000 miles away had been flattened in minutes, long before its operators could react. At NATO headquarters, the shockwave was no less intense. Diplomats concluded that the strike had redrawn the very concept of deterrence. No longer would nuclear states feel invulnerable behind fortified walls or vast oceans. The 21st century battlefield was global, instantaneous, and merciless. "The red lines we once drew," the Secretary General declared behind closed doors, "are being tested not by one adversary but by many." The implication was stark. Beijing's partnership with Moscow, naval expansion near Pakistan's Gwadar port, and stealth drone patrols near Europe's eastern frontiers were not isolated acts. They were coordinated signals probing for weakness, testing whether alliances could fracture under pressure. Eastern European delegates grew uneasy. Poland, Romania, and the Baltic states pushed for immediate deployments of NATO forces to reinforce their borders, fearful that what had erupted in Asia could spill into their own backyard. Intelligence officers painted chilling scenarios, China and Russia stretching NATO thin, drawing it into simultaneous crises in the Pacific and Eastern Europe. The alliance faced a test of both resolve and cohesion. Meanwhile, across Asia, the domino effect accelerated. In Tokyo, Prime Minister Fumio Kishida convened an emergency midnight cabinet session, approving an unprecedented $14 billion surge in defense spending to expand Japan's air and missile defenses. In Seoul, South Korea doubled down on drone development, pledging to expand production lines and field hundreds of new strike UAVs before year's end. In Canberra, Australia committed to hosting a permanent fleet of America's next-generation B-21 stealth bombers, signaling the Pacific was preparing not just for defense but for sustained deterrence. For ordinary people, the impact was visceral. Veterans in the United States who remembered Cold War drills spoke with a mix of awe and unease. Families who had lived under the threat of nuclear sirens in the 1980s now watched history repeat on their living room screens. But this time, missiles weren't just threatened, they were dismantled before launch. Younger generations scrolling TikTok and Instagram absorbed the lesson in real time. Wars of the future would be decided not just by firepower, but by images. Images that validated or humiliated, that spread faster than any missile and shaped perceptions across continents. By midnight, it was undeniable. Operation Iron Torch was not simply a military victory. It was a proof of concept, a chilling demonstration of 21st century warfare. In under 15 minutes, a coalition had shattered the myth of China's invulnerability, neutralized platforms capable of carrying more than 100 nuclear warheads, and left the world questioning what escalation might follow. Yet no counterstrike came from Beijing, its radar systems blinded, its satellite uplinks severed for 9 crucial minutes and its command chain paralyzed. China remained silent. That silence was deafening, both to its citizens and to the world. As dawn broke on July 16, 2025, the world stood in a different reality. The craters in Xinjiang were no longer just scars on the desert floor, they were scars on global security. Proof that even the most fortified nuclear strongholds could collapse in seconds. China's silence in the aftermath said more than any speech could. No missiles were launched, no fleets mobilized. Instead, Beijing appeared stunned. Its aura of invulnerability shattered under the weight of a 14-minute strike. For Washington, the message was unmistakable. Distance no longer shielded adversaries. And hesitation was a luxury America refused to afford. NATO, meanwhile, recognized that unity and speed were its only defense against the growing coordination of rival powers. Across the Pacific, allies absorbed the lesson. Survival in the modern era depended not on walls of steel but on alliances of precision, speed, and willpower. Taiwan's defiance, Japan's rearmament, South Korea's drone surge, and Australia's pledge to host American stealth bombers revealed a chain reaction. The strike had redrawn the map of deterrence.